Hello and welcome to No Friends Gaming, because you don't need friends to have a good time. Now I'm sure you're all wondering, what is a goblin doing playing Age of Innovation? What have they done with the host of this YouTube channel? But look, it's been me this whole time. I know, this is one of my most impressive costumes yet, and I'm sure you're all yearning for the cosplay tutorial. But that'll have to wait as we delve into the strategy of Age of Innovation by Helge Ostertag. Focus on increasing income early, which can be done by building workshops, upgrading to schools for certain competencies, or shooting for an income-based palace or innovation tile. Obtaining resources via other means will also help you build and upgrade for more income, so advance on the science track for the current end of round bonus, take book and power actions, and work toward an early city. The round score tiles are a vital source of points and resources. You should prioritize doing an action if it scores points this round. But if actions will score in a subsequent round, it may be prudent to delay doing those actions until that time, instead setting yourself up to do more instances of those actions. For example, you might hold off on upgrading workshops to guilds if that will score next round, and focus on terraforming and building workshops so you have more opportunities to upgrade to guilds thereafter. Ascend on the science tracks for the round score tiles, particularly the one for the current round, as more immediate benefits can be reinvested to improve your economy sooner. Also, make sure to ascend in disciplines that appear on multiple round score tiles, since you'll get more rewards for that progression. You can typically get 5 competency tiles over the course of the game, one for each school, one for upgrading a school to your university, and one for building that school again. While the competency tiles with income may be preferred earlier on, the point scoring ones are very powerful, so be sure to claim at least 1 or 2 of them. When choosing between similarly helpful competencies, you'll want to check which science track is preferred and how many steps you need to advance to gain more end-of-round science bonuses, to get power charge for a certain power action, to reach a threshold for income, or to beat someone else to the top of a track. You'll also want to check the books that you need for the book actions and innovations you wish to take. You could also factor in the book colors required for a certain innovation, but there are enough sources of wild books in the game that often won't matter. You should aim to get at least 1 innovation, since your first one is the cheapest. However, book actions are a comparably worthwhile use of books, particularly to jumpstart your economy, and especially the one that upgrades to a guild. If you do shoot for an innovation in the first couple of rounds, Professor's Workshop and Steam Power are among the most powerful in the early game. Later on, you could go for a neutral building if that lets you form an additional city, or pursue victory points. When choosing which wild books to gain, get 2 books in the color or colors required for the innovation you wish to take, and then go for other colors of books to hedge against an opponent potentially sniping that tile before you're ready. That way, you could pivot to a different innovation if needed. Track the number and colors of books your opponents are collecting, so you can anticipate if they're aiming for the same tile as you. The pure point-scoring innovations should score at least 15 to 18 points, but you may need to settle for less if another player is threatening to take your preferred tile first. In the first 4 or 5 rounds, it is almost always worth it to leech power, that is, to pay points to charge power when others build next to you, unless it would cause you to forego imminent power charge from another source, such as an end-of-round bonus or income. The value you gain from taking power actions and conversions will more than make up for the points spent. So build next to other players, which will also lower the cost of upgrading to guilds. You should compete assertively for power actions, burning power from Bold 2 so that you can afford them sooner before other players snap them up. I often go down to 7 or 8 tokens early on, but am disinclined to drop below 6, which would lock me out of doing the double spade action. The double spade action is very powerful in the first few rounds and well worth racing for to generate more home terrain to build on, increasing your income from buildings. When planning your cities, look for clusters of hexes that require fewer total spades to terraform. This may include hexes on either side of the river to be connected by a bridge. This will inform where you and your opponents place your workshops during setup. Try to start next to other players for power leech and cheaper guilds. 3 tools for 1 spade is too expensive. Look for other sources of spades until you can spare the resources to improve your terraforming track and/or upgrade sailing to access your native terrain along the river. If you can't efficiently get spades, then go tall in the meanwhile by upgrading your buildings. Anticipate where your opponents might build, considering how close the nearby hexes are to their home terrain. You may need to prioritize expanding to take those locations first, especially to avoid being landlocked and to get your buildings within reach of each other for area scoring. Don't be afraid to pass early before you've run out of things to do. You might do this to ensure you act earlier next round to take a much needed power action such as money or double spades before another player blocks you. Or you could pass early to nab an important round booster while it's available, particularly a point scoring one in the second half of the game. Conversely, you may wish to pass after another player who has a round booster you want, in which case you could stall by paying tools to terraform one step at a time and building as a separate turn instead of all at once. No strategy guide for Age of Innovation would be complete without discussing the draft. In the method described in the rulebook, players draft thrice clockwise from the first player among the terrains, factions, and palace tiles, then draft the round boosters anti-clockwise from last player. There is also a popular community variant, the backwards snake draft, which is considered to better balance the first player advantage. Here you'll draft from last player back to first, then first to last, last to first, and first to last again, choosing among all 4 types of components. Now, here are some of the strongest components to pick up early in the draft, all else being equal. Desert has the best map position, while Wasteland has the most valuable starting benefit. When it comes to the factions, we must first note that the publisher has recently made official balance changes to 3 of them to be rolled out in future printings. The Illusionists will now score fewer points, the Moles more points, and the Navigators will get a coin when they trigger their ability. Pre-nerf Illusionists were easily the most powerful faction, but now all 3 rebalanced factions are solid picks, along with the Monks, Inventors, Philosophers, Psychics, and Omar. Palace 7, which scores for schools when passing, has high scoring potential. The Scholar Flight Palace scores well while enabling easy expansion and saving you from having to upgrade sailing. Palaces 13 and 12, which score when building guilds and workshops respectively, are great sources of points coupled with decently high income. Of the round bonus tiles, the Spade plus Book and Science plus 2 tools are the most desirable in round 1. There are many considerations that will affect how you prioritize what to draft. If there are enough similarly powered items remaining of one type, you should select a different type of component instead. For example, if the factions are equally good, you'll get one of them in the end anyway, so you can take your terrain or palace first. A terrain is less valuable if an opponent has a neighboring terrain, since you'd be competing over similar territory. Factions are better if their starting science advancements match multiple round score tiles for the end of round bonuses, particularly the ones earlier on. The Upgrade to Guild book action facilitates potent openings and will incentivize you to acquire at least 2 books if that would let you take that action ahead of other players. Consider the tasks rewarded by the round score tiles. If the first round tile scores points for innovations, you might prioritize sources of books. Or if it scores for workshops, you could collect components that help you expand by granting spades, power charge to take the double spade action, or a scholar to improve sailing. If upgrading to a palace scores in round 2 or 3 instead of round 1, you might prefer a palace with a once-off benefit over one with an ongoing ability or high income that you'd want to get out sooner. Look out for combos, that is, components that synergize with each other. Illusionists get a disproportionate benefit from power charge. Philosophers love Palace 3, which lets them downgrade and rebuild schools to gain more competencies, getting an extra book each time. Felines and Lizards trigger their faction ability when gaining Palace 11's City Tile. Lake Terrain pairs well with the Sailing Round booster for rapid expansion while gaining points. Take these combos for yourself or deny one of the components from an opponent who has the other. Well, it is now time for us to challenge the AI on Optrauma or Nightmare difficulty, the hardest level. So please join me in the next video.